Hello, everyone. I'm Ben Vogel, Deputy Editor of Construction News magazine, and welcome to Liverpool, where we're recording the latest episode of our CN First Sight podcast live at Speedy Expo 2024. In this episode, we're going to be discussing AI. It's already here. You read about it in the news, watch it on TV news every day. It's set to revolutionize the way that businesses operate across every sector, and construction is no exception. But how should the construction sector harness AI? What are the best use cases? And what should tier one firms and firms all the way through the supply chain bear in mind when considering adopting AI in their technology and in their business processes? To look into these and other aspects of the topic, it's my pleasure to introduce in front of a live audience with Lee Daggatt, who is Group IT Director of Speedy Hire. Hi, Lee.
Hi.
And Richard Potter, Chief Executive of Peak AI. Hi, Richard. But before we do start, I just wonder if we could have a quick show of hands from the audience. How many of you already use artificial intelligence in some way or form in your businesses? Please raise your hands. So for the benefit of the audience at home, I will say there's about 7 or 8 in the audience who are already looking at using AI or already using AI. Who is thinking about adopting AI, in the process of thinking about it? So raise your hands, please. So there's probably about 5 or 6 from the audience. So there's a little bit of headway to be made there in terms of people in the industry getting into AI. So let's dive into the topic. Why is AI important for the construction sector? And what can AI do in practical terms? I'm wondering, Richard, if you could pick that one up.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's quite a big answer to that question, probably. In practical terms, what artificial intelligence gives us new capabilities. It essentially enhances the cognitive ability of workforces and people doing jobs day to day. And I think that you can think of it in 2 respects. We've got this sort of newer hype cycle around AI, which has been driven a lot by generative AI. And those technologies are very good. The reason they're called generative AI is because they generate new data from old data. So in terms of creating things, and that really helps in a number of different tasks. So I think generally we're going to see most workers have generative AI technologies and tools and capabilities embedded into the places where we do our work already today, if that makes sense.
ChatGPTs of this world.
Yeah, exactly. So co-pilots, as Microsoft would call them, or in Peak's case, we have a co-driver on our platform, which is like an AI assistant. And what that can help you do is speed up productivity, essentially, or increase productivity and speed up completion of tasks, or just generally enhance our ability to do certain things. And personally, I found those sort of technologies really useful for solving things like blank page problems. You've got to write something or do something, create a presentation. Where do I start? And it can give me a structure and it can help you, So I think there's a group of technologies that are not specific to construction, that are just going to be generally useful for the workforce in general. And what will happen is those technologies will find their way into traditional software, and it will enhance those pieces of software. So we'll be able to do things with those things, with ERP systems, ordering products, or helping a customer place an order, or answering a customer support query. That's going to be enhanced by generative technologies. And then you've got other AI technologies, which you can more broadly call predictive AI. And that's been around much longer. And that's really useful for optimizing businesses, basically. So if we can make good predictions on future state, maybe that's demand, maybe that's how a product will respond to pricing changes, or maybe that's actually what a specific customer is going to do next or likely to do next. We can optimize processes we've run for years in a different way. So, and that's a lot of what we're doing with Speedy, which is optimizing, always having the exact right amount of products in the right place at the right time, what price we sell that for, how we communicate and sell and talk to our customers and service our customers. Those predictive AI capabilities are really useful for that. And then what you'll see over time is the fusion of all of those technologies, I think, come together to create more specific artificial intelligence capabilities for certain sectors. And you're already starting to see that in certain places, like AIs to support general practitioners in medicine or lawyers. Everyone wants to speed lawyers up. So, really useful for speeding up a lot of those sort of processes. They're kind of easier, particularly the legal example, because that's all about reviewing text and generating new text and so on and so forth. So that's it.
Structured way of doing things.
Exactly. Whereas in construction, which I think is quite different, it's very physical and real world, the actual act of constructing and building something, that a lot of those processes, to a certain extent, won't be changed too much by AI, but what we do, how much, where, when, and how we optimize the businesses around it, with the construction part being the core component of of driving profit for construction firms. I think that will completely transform the way the industry works, and then eventually, you might find construction itself is materially changed, but that'll be a fusion of technologies, not just AI, that changes the way maybe we build houses, or maybe we did, or anything really, or design them, especially because AI will really speed up the design, drafting, and then process of getting to breaking ground and building something. But the act of actually building that thing is pretty real world and difficult for AI to contribute to in that sense,
Thank you, Richard. Let me bring in Lee here. I mean, what's your opinion of that, as somebody who deals a lot with contractors directly, in terms of the use cases for AI in construction?
Sure. So, like Richard said, we've been working with Peak now for, I was trying to think last night, Richard, is it like 7 years, 6, 7 years? I think it could be around that amount of time. Generally from the predictive side, like Richard said. So where we started with this really was we were looking to improve our return on capital. It wasn't great in comparison to our competitors at that point. So that was kind of the task that we were given, and we wanted to have a look at how AI could help with that really. So we kind of got in contact with Peak and looked about how they could help us from an inventory optimization piece that they could do with us really. So as you can imagine, we've got thousands of products, hundreds of locations, trying to sort that out as a human's quite tricky in terms of how do you best optimize where you place everything and how many of those things that you hold in order to improve your return on capital. So we kind of set out with this aim to make sure that we could meet like 95% of customer demand on our top 350 products was kind of our starting point, to try and predict how many, when we open the door in the morning for each of our locations, how many of those things that we should have in each of our location in order to meet 95% of the customer demand. That was kind of where we started. So obviously we've got the complications of hiring things out, which adds an extra level of complexity, I think. We're trying to best utilize what we've got as a business. We don't want to be buying more things, so we're trying to move things and have them where they're best, required by customers. We don't know when things are coming back a lot of the time. Our customers don't inform us when things are coming back. So that's part of what the AI model can try and help with, to try and predict when some of those things might happen. Because otherwise we're constantly moving the stock, around to try and meet this demand, So I think I kind of said when I first spoke with Richard about we've got these different levers that we can pull at Speedy. We've got an engineering facilities, we've got logistics, vehicles moving things around the network, and we've got our amount of kit, and it's trying to build a model that helps us set these three levers at the optimal positions, where we've got the right amount of people, the right amount of vehicles, and the right amount of kit to make us the most kind of profitable as we can be. And that's where we've been trying to get to. And we came up with this concept that was called fix it, move it, buy it, which we've kind of got this demand, and then we try and build a model that tells us the best way to meet that demand, whether it's to fix stuff, to move stuff, or to buy more stuff. And that's kind of where we are with the journey. These models all needing to kind of talk to each other to try and best solve that problem.
It sounds very complicated, but what kind of teething problems did you encounter? Because there may have been teething problems, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I suppose in the first instance, we were trying to go after a specific number within those locations. So 4 of them, 3 of them, 1 of them, 2 of them. That's just not workable because you'd be constantly moving stuff around to try and get to that number. So we kind of went down a minimum and maximum route. So like you have to have a minimum of 2 of them, a maximum of 4 of them. If you've got more than 4, we'll take them off you. If you've got less than 2, we'll give you some more. And if you're anywhere in between, we'll keep you as you are. So that bit was kind of, we kind of got onto quite quickly. It's difficult to try and, get to a specific number. Some of the other parts is, I suppose, you've got to try and take people on the journey with you, I guess. I guess one of the things that kind of what you can't have with AI, it can't just be like a black box that nobody understands. So you put a load of data in and it gives you a load of answers out. If there's no understanding there, an appreciation there of why it's decided that, people won't buy into it, I think. That was one quite tricky thing, so it makes it quite difficult to then sell. So there was a big change piece that we had to do as a business to try and take people on the journey. And we started off with like a proof of concept just in one region, really, to see, try and prove it and see what problems came out of that and like make adjustments. You don't want to go big bang with this type of thing, so it's just taking those.
Right.
It's
about cultural acceptance.
Yeah,
really, in the workforce.
Absolutely. Like, and I can tell like some. I've got a bit later on from one of the other questions, but I'll go into a little bit more detail on that a little bit later on. But yeah, they were kind of the things in the first instance that we had to kind of address. Like,
okay,
yeah.
As an organisation that uses an AI tool, an AI platform, Leap, what other use cases do you see for AI beyond those that you're using already?
Yeah, well, the next one that we kind of went on to after that was price optimization, because again, in standard retail, generally you're going to have a kind of set price for something a lot of the time, whereas for us, there's some leeway there on that price because you've always got that length of hire to take into account. So, if we've only got to deliver something once, collect something once, and inspect it once, the amount of margin in that, if it's out for a day, a week, a month, or a year, can like vary. So there's kind of this, there's this sweet spot again that you're trying to hit regarding the price. So what we did was we got a lot of our customers and added a lot of attribute data to those customers so we understood them better. And then we tried to put them into buckets and then put prices against those buckets to try and give the people out in the depot network a price that they should try and aim for that customer, rather than being a little bit blind, because it'll take into account the average length of hire, how much they spend, the size of the customer, blah, blah, blah. Lots of attributes about them that it can kind of like help us, achieve the right price for who we're speaking to in front of us. So that was another key one. Then there's some kind of sales and marketing ones that we're looking at the minute. So one is trying to predict customer churn. So if we see a change in behavior around a customer where there might be potential for that customer to churn, try and spot that ahead of time and try and do some either marketing or sales activity to try and stop that from happening.
So how can AI help you do that specifically?
Yeah, well, basically, I can't get right into the technical details of the AI model, but basically it looks for changes in patterns basically within the model, and it'll see that something is different. Either regularity's changing or the amount of spend, or different things are changing within the model. That actually then makes you realise that something needs to be done to put that right, basically. That's kind of how it works.
And then with that clue, you can build sales processes around it. So instead of being reactive to something, you're proactive. And that is one of the key differences of using AI in your sort of business operation versus sort of historical reporting. You've got a view into the future and you can optimize to the future state. And the other thing that you can do is the AI can help optimize many decisions continuously and instantly all the time. So the combination of those two things is what gives you the uplift in performance, basically, but it still requires a team to operate to that future state. The AI is not taking over the actual operation in that sense. It's pushing it in the right direction.
So what I call a human in the loop is still a very important factor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially for a people-driven industry like construction. It's vital.
We're not going to see some kind of dystopian future where Skynet appears and the machines take over. That's very good to know. I
hope not.
And yes, me too. Thank you very much. It's very interesting to hear about the actual practical use cases for AI as used by a construction industry company. But as we saw earlier with a show of hands, a lot of people in the audience said they're not using AI at the moment. So if you can, both of you, put yourselves in the position of a firm which is thinking about adopting AI and trying to sort of put their toe in the water, so to speak, what are the main things that such an organisation should bear in mind? It's not something, as Lee said, that you can just plug and play as a black box. There's a lot of careful planning required, I expect.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I reckon probably more people than 6 or 7 are using AI data. Might just not realise it, particularly because we're using a lot of software that embeds AI features under the hood. So it depends on your definition. I just think, though, that general productivity improvement driven by those sorts of tools, like co-pilots in on Microsoft Teams or something like that, will just be table stakes. So if you're getting into how can AI actually move the needle for my company, like how's it going to dramatically improve, give me a competitive advantage, think about it that way. You have to move away from generic AI to specific, and that would be my general advice. You need to think about how does my company actually make a profit? So what's the core of my business? In Speedy's case, it's return on capital based business because it's hiring products. In a sales, in a straight sales business, it would be a straight sale of product, and in a actual construction business, it's the delivery of services. So we think about what can AI do as part of the provisioning of that product that can boost the bottom line. Basically, that's what I would do. And in a business like Speedy, that's going to be one of two things. That's either going to be optimizing the decisions around all of the things that come together to deliver the operating profit. So, Lee's just covered them. What stock, where, what price, how to talk to my customers. And there's many more around that as well, actually. But that AI has to be very specific. It has to understand my business. It has to understand how it works, how it functions. Every company is different, right? We all have different customers. We have different data, processes, rules, etc. So the AI has to be specific to a company and then put in the hands of the business teams. And it's either going to enhance them, i.e. help them make decisions in a way that they never could before, or make the decisions that they were making even better. And in doing that, the sum total of all of it is a slicker, a more efficient operation that delivers more profit. So that's a bit conceptual, but actually the practical reality of that is as simple as thinking about, well, I make money by having the right in Speedy's case, a high level of service for what customers want, where they want it, and when. And if we can optimize that fundamental thing, then in theory, we should become a more profitable business, and we can use the additional profits to reinvest for growth and future profits, right? So then that's what a lot of companies are doing today. They're realizing that AI isn't a chatbot on the website. AI should be our own It should understand our business and how it functions, and then we can put it into how we operate. And then once you've figured that out, you have to deal with some of the things that Lee's talked about. There's culture change there. There's education. And that is all trust, really, because as humans we won't trust a computer unless we know it's going to be right, and we won't let it take over our decisions, because actually as humans we're quite good at the decisions we make. We just can't do it all the time continuously and handle the high degree of complexity that modern companies have. So this AI can make me great at my job, but it's only going to make me great if I trust it. And that's the key. So you're going to need a specific AI that really works for my business, and in doing so we're going to have to engender trust and bring the teams along the way, and the two things will lead to enhanced performance. That's the way I would look at it. But and I think that's the journey that Speedy have been on.
Yeah. I think to add to that, the data piece is absolutely the fundamental building block. Obviously, that's what's going to train. You're going to train your models on, and having that in the right shape. That was another one of those early learnings where there was pieces of data that were not in the shape that they needed to be able to work with the AI models that they were doing. We've still got some issues around that now. Capturing lost hire data is a crucial one for Speedy. It's not the most straightforward thing to capture. If a customer rings up to hire something, we don't have it available, and we're not able to meet that need, that quick way to capture that data that they could then feed back into the model so that it learns about that for next time, that's something that we've not got quite right here yet, that we're looking to improve. On. Another part of the data that we had missing was what products were capable of doing in which location. People knew that in their heads, but we didn't have that in a system. So the AI might say that you should have 2 of these in that location, but that location either doesn't have enough room for those products, doesn't have the right vehicles to transport those products, doesn't have the person that has the right skill set to work on those products. Yet it was suggesting that we should put some there, and that we had to then go after some of that data and capture that data to then allow the model to learn and understand that it shouldn't place things there because we don't have the ability.
A bit like a jigsaw puzzle, making a jigsaw puzzle of data in different strands of data in order to make the AI model work most effectively.
Yeah, exactly. And then, go on, Rich.
Well, all I was going to say, that's the difference between generic AI and something that's specific. And also, the AI isn't just a model, it's not just a prediction. A real artificial intelligence exhibits intelligence, and to do that, it's the prediction, it's also the business rules, logic, and all of that. And then it's optimizing to something, so it's goal seeking. So it can be goal seeking towards 95% availability, as Lee said, or it could be optimizing to maximize sales, which would give you a different output than optimizing for return on capital. And so once you've got that is an AI that can help you make those decisions, and that's sort of common misconception as to the difference between what is AI. It isn't just a prediction, or it isn't just a model. It's in a commercial setting, it is much more than that.
Yeah. The going back to the taking people on the journey piece, which is really important for everybody to get right. Like I say, we did a proof of concept. It was decided that we'd do it in our most complicated area because they wanted to try and, see that it could handle our most complicated kind of use case. So we kind of decided to do it in the London region first. And we got all these levels out for, for our top 350 products, and we looked at what we needed to do. And I remember there was one particular location where it said you needed 8 of this particular product that we had. And when we went to speak to them about that, they were absolutely convinced they needed a minimum of 15 of these things on the shelf, so almost double what the model was saying. So there was this huge piece that we had to go through to try and get people on the journey to show. We actually had 4 years worth of data, and we could show in 4 years that only on 10 occasions had we hired more than 8 in a single day. So we could, and then we built a portal where you could look for any location and any product, and you could see this in front of you to try and give people a level of comfort that actually there's a lot of science going behind the numbers that we're saying, and it's not like saying not a black box really. But even then, when we took all the kit out of those locations, we put it in a lockup that was close by, in case, just in case it was needed. We put it in this place that was close by that we could get to it quickly if the requirement was there. But we didn't have to actually go and visit that location to get any of it because, it actually kind of showed that it was on the right path. And then from there, then we were able, once we got people on the journey with us, they were able to help us put it in the other regions because at that point, then people, we were able to see that it had worked, in the other area.
So is it fair to say that you've got a modular kind of approach to applying AI to your business processes, Lee?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I've talked about inventory of price. We're looking at the sales and marketing piece. These are all kind of modules that we have in place with Peak. There's generally a business lead within Speedy for each of these modules that's owning them. They've got KPIs that they're looking to improve as part of these modules, and they're kind of the owner of those modules. So that's another important point, really. You've got to make sure that you resource this right on our side. We can't just give these problems to Peak and then take us through it. They can help us through the journey, but you've really got to make sure you resource it on your side and have people that are responsible for it on that side, because otherwise, it has to be done in combination, doesn't it? Or you're not going to get there, because we understand our business, Peak understand AI, and then together we can kind of get there. But you've really got to make sure that you resource it correctly on your side as well.
Richard, would you like to come in on that?
The modular component, I think, is an important one to touch on. Just that as you add new capability to a business, it then offers the potential to do more than just like singular applications of AI, and that's the future direction of travel for AI in businesses, where we're not just making a narrow decision in the most optimal way. A lot of our decisions are connected throughout our entire value chain. So if you take a traditional, say, retail business, for example, if they're trying to optimize inventory, like their inventory position, and they're out of whack, maybe on a particular product or a SKU or something like that, or in a specific location, it's not just a stock decision we can take. We might be able to take a pricing decision or a promotional decision to get the stock back. So what companies are doing is starting with one core application and then adding things on. And then what you're able to do is create optimizations across those modules, as you sort of refer to them. And that allows you a completely different way to sort of optimize end-to-end processes in businesses. It takes, I think, for a business as large and complex as Speedy, that takes a long time to get to. But what it means is putting AI into a business is not a one and done thing. It's not like implementing a new point of sale system where we might, upgrade our tills and it's done. And there's a support contract and that's fine, but we generally don't change it for a long time. The AI is going to go in and it's going to be built on and then extended and extended, and it's an iterative thing. So companies will have to also think then, how do we do that? Do we do that with a supplier or a third party or a partner like Speedy are doing with Peak? Or do we do it ourselves, and how do we do it, and what's the right technology? So I think starting with one area and getting success breeds the desire for more success. But to your point on sort of taking a modular approach, the more you add, the more future almost like maintenance requirement you've got of that, because it's a continuous and ever-evolving thing. And also the AI learns from what it does, so it never stands still. It's not like a fixed piece of software. So that also requires some sort of change in thought pattern about software in business. But yeah, absolutely. I think that modular approach and then optimizing across a much broader set of capabilities is what most companies are doing nowadays that are further down the maturity journey.
It occurs to me, as this conversation has evolved, the importance of cultural acceptance, and not only by Speedy in this instance, but also from the customers. from the end users and the clients is also very important. Given that, you know, the up and coming generation, people in their late teens, early 20s, are a lot more tech savvy, they're a lot more comfortable with this process generally. Does that lead to a feeling of optimism that it will be a lot easier in future to bring in new AI processes into business?
My concern actually I would have a concern about that, and which would be the opposite of optimistic, which is that I think if we place too much if we don't fundamentally understand how AI is supporting and/or helping us make decisions, that's risky, actually, in my view. So I think that younger generations coming into the workforce, a key skill they're going to need is the digital awareness, really, of how do systems work. When I came into the workplace, it was software didn't do much other than like email and a few other, it used an ERP system. It's fairly easy to learn how to use those pieces of software because I was controlling it. But the other way around, when the human-machine relationship is slightly different, it's really important, I think, that people understand the foundations of those pieces of software and how they work, because otherwise we won't be able to question whether it's true or not. It's a bit like fake news, isn't it? We do history at school. You're taught to like question stuff in history because was it real? Did it actually happen? Did someone actually do that? Or did someone just pretend it and write it down and claimed it was true? It's getting harder and harder to spot that, partly because of AI out in the wild in a consumer sense. And I think if we're going to then take those technologies and use them in businesses, we're going to have to be very, almost not skeptical, but certainly cautious with how much reliance we place on those things. And we're definitely going to have to understand how those things are making those decisions with us.
I think
and so that would be my counter to that, which is like, okay, so as the younger folks come into the workforce, if they don't have that natural curiosity and understanding and also that foundational knowledge, that could be risky for business.
It's an interesting point. I think there's food for thought there for providers of training into the construction industry to make sure AI is included in their curriculums. Thank you. Just a final kind of question for both of you. Because AI is constantly evolving, constantly adapting, how easy is it for a business using artificial intelligence in whatever form? How easy is it for that business to stay ahead of the game?
Yeah.
I'll save the most difficult questions till last.
Not straightforward, like you say. With any technology, it's like constantly changing. It is very, very difficult to keep pace with, and AI these last few years has been really, really, like I say, we've been doing this around about 7 years with Peak. It's took off so much come out since then. That's one of the reasons that we have this relationship, because they can help us to keep pace, and it's what they do, so they can understand everything that's coming out. If me looking after an IT function was trying to keep pace with that and every other part of what I have to get involved in, it just wouldn't be possible. So those partnerships are really, really quite key for us, I guess. And some of the stuff like where Rich said around the generative stuff, we're not doing much around that at all at the minute. Around our Microsoft products, we're looking at how Copilot might be able to help Speedy, but we're only kind of dipping our toe in the water, having a bit of a think about how that might work. It's absolutely on our to-do list, but it's just like, when does it get to the top of that? Because we can see a lot of productivity. We have done a tiny little bit in one part of our business, customer solutions business, where we're using the ChatGPT function to try and categorize inquiries that come into Speedy and route it to the right team, whether that be a quotation or if something's broken down or somebody wants to off-hire something or whatever it is, to try and route it to the right team properly. It's very much in its infancy, and it's quite tricky to try and get there. So it's kind of stuff like that where we can see value in it, but it also takes quite a bit of time. And yeah, what is the right use case? Like what I said before, it's trying to pick out. It's great, this stuff, but what's the right use case? How's it really going to help us as a company? Is the bit where you need a little bit of help? I think, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of companies of a certain size and scale will start to have, chief AI officers on their exec boards. And I don't think that's necessarily a technical role. I think it's somebody who has a technical understanding and probably quite a logical mind, but also good commercial understanding, because the application of AI within a business will proliferate in everywhere over time. And it presents massive opportunity for companies, and so it allows us to rethink about how we run our businesses and like the fundamentals of how we make a profit and grow. And I think that's a really important one, not to have, to Lee's point, it can't be just in IT or in another part of a business. It has to be, somebody needs to be thinking about it strategically. And
Right.
I think you'll start to see the rise of that as a role. We had chief data officers like 10 years ago, became fashionable because there's more data. But like, this is different. This is a very commercial role, really.
Touching on every aspect of a business. Ultimately.
Yeah,
So it's
and working very closely with those setting the strategy, but then also those operating a business and running it. So it's a really fascinating role to do, but hard to find the person with the right skill set.
You interested, Lee?
Yeah. Well, and I'm just it's next promotion, Lee. So the other thing is, actually, interestingly, you asked about how you stay ahead. So the AI technologies are evolving very quickly, but what that actually does, because it's making it more accessible, easier to use, and the availability is wider. So if that's true, and the benefit of having, effectively, you're going to see the commoditization of AI technologies. The AIs themselves are going to be the things that help us perform better as businesses. And to what Lee said earlier, they rely on data. So actually, that offers a massive advantage to businesses like Speedy, who are established and have, decades of operation, a lot of data. That data can become a technical moat. So 10 years ago, people started to be concerned that because it was so easy to set up a new business or have disruption from technology, companies like, Netflix or Uber can come in and completely change an industry almost overnight. Actually, now I think in industries like the one Speedy operate in, incumbents who have a large market share today and therefore lots of data they can use, have the ability to use that data to stay ahead in the world of AI in a way they didn't do before. Because it wasn't AI that was making the difference. It was efficiency driving software and technologies, which is slightly different to AI itself. So funnily enough, I actually think as AI becomes more prolific and becomes easier to access, it offers a different opportunity to more sort of established businesses, which is to create a technology moat because of the data they sit on around themselves that they didn't have before. So if done right, it can be really value creating, I think, for companies like that.
Thank you very much. We are running a bit short of time, but if there are any questions from the audience, if anyone wants to ask a question of our panelists, now's the time. Everyone was listening with completely rapt attention, which is wonderful because we are running short of time. Thank you very much to Richard Potter and Lee Daggatt for their time today. It was very interesting to get your perspectives. And for the audience back home, thank you very much for listening to the First Sight podcast. If you like what you've heard, you can subscribe to First Sight at constructionnews.co.uk/podcasts. And we're also available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Thank you again for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.